Picture 3 in the morning in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Most of America is asleep, but 5,000 sailors on the USS Gerald R. Ford are wide awake. Their eyes burn from exhaustion. Some have not seen real sunlight in weeks. Others survive on just 5 hours of sleep. Less than doctors say we need to function safely. This is not a wartime emergency. This is daily life aboard America's most advanced aircraft carriers. These floating cities worth $13 billion, each hide a reality the Navy has struggled with for decades. The USS George Washington made headlines in April 2022. 3 young sailors took their own lives within 6 days. 9 sailors total died by suicide on that one ship between 2019 and 2022. Navy investigators called it a 911-like event. It exposed the dark truth of putting thousands in a metal box floating on the ocean for months. These are not just numbers. These are America's finest young men and women who promise to defend our freedom. They deserve better than 100-hour work weeks in conditions that would shock most Americans. The stories you will hear change how you think about life at sea. Our sailors sacrifice more than most realize. First, consider something we all take for granted: sleep. The average American gets 7 to 8 hours on a carrier. Sailors are lucky to get 5 hours and 15 minutes. That is not enough for the human body to function well. Navy sleep researcher Dr. Matthew Caldwell found something alarming in 2024. In a study of 669 Navy watchstanders, 68% slept less than 7 hours daily. Nearly 1/3 of carrier sailors reported being so tired they could barely keep their eyes open. This is more than just feeling tired after work. Navy studies show after long periods without sleep, sailor performance drops to levels similar to being drunk. Imagine landing a 60,000-pound fighter jet on a moving deck while feeling drunk. The numbers are worse for specific jobs. Galley workers who prepare thousands of meals daily work an average of 12.8 hours. They get just 6.6 hours of sleep. That means they are awake nearly 18 hours straight day after day. For decades, the Navy used a schedule called 5 and dimes, 5 hours on duty, 10 hours off. It sounds reasonable, but those 10 hours off include eating hygiene maintenance training and trying to sleep. In reality, sailors might get 4 or 5 hours of rest before another grueling shift. Master Chief Russell Smith told the George Washington crew in April 2022, "We failed to account for the true cost of this process on our sailors." Now imagine calling a place home where 5,000 people share one building. That is life on a modern aircraft carrier. These ships are longer than the Empire State Building is tall, but packing that many people inside makes space precious. Enlisted sailors sleep in quarters called berthing compartments with about 60 others. Your bed is a rack, a narrow bunk stacked 3 high with just room to roll over. You share this space with dozens each on different schedules. Privacy does not exist. You might have a small locker and a curtain around your rack. If you are lucky, bathrooms called heads serve dozens of sailors. Showers are shared, quick, and often interrupted. Moving through the ship means climbing steep stairs and squeezing through narrow corridors. Everything is painted navy gray. Artificial light replaces sunlight for weeks. Some sailors working deep inside do not see natural light for their entire watch rotation. The USS Abraham Lincoln housed over 5,000 sailors and Marines on a recent deployment. That is like putting a small town into a space smaller than a shopping mall. Every inch has a purpose. There is no wasted space for comfort. But our sailors adapt. They build communities in these tight spaces. They look out for each other. They find ways to keep morale up, surrounded by metal walls and the constant sound of machinery. Recent improvements show the Navy is listening. The Lincoln got high-speed internet through Starlink satellites. During a 5-month deployment, sailors used 780 terabytes of data. That is like downloading 200,000 high-definition movies. Video calls home made a huge difference for sailor morale. But what happens when the stress becomes too much? The numbers tell a story the Navy wishes it could ignore. In the first quarter of 2024, the Navy reported 24 sailor suicides. That is the highest quarterly number since records began in 2018. It means one sailor took their own life every 3.7 days. For 2023, the Navy lost 70 sailors to suicide, a rate climbing steadily since 2011. The USS George Washington became the tragic symbol of this crisis. Between November 2019 and April 2022, 9 sailors from this one ship died by suicide. 3 died in one horrific week in April 2022. Master-at-Arms seaman recruit Xavier Mitchell Sandor was 19 years old when he took his life on April 15, 2022. His family later filed a lawsuit claiming the Navy failed to provide basic living conditions. Xavier had shared his struggles, but help came too late. The George Washington situation was especially tragic because of the timing. The ship was stuck in Newport News Shipyard in Virginia since August 2017 for a refueling and complex overhaul. What should have taken 4 years stretched to nearly 6 years due to delays. During this time, sailors lived in conditions investigators called some of the toughest in the military. Many sailors preferred sleeping in their cars rather than on the ship. Commutes took up to 3 hours each way. Basic amenities like parking, food, and recreation were inadequate for thousands of sailors. Navy investigators found something more disturbing. In 31% of George Washington's sailors knew someone having suicidal thoughts. By 2020, that number jumped to 56%. The ship's leadership knew there was a crisis, but the response was inadequate. Rear Admiral John Meyer later admitted, "We failed to stop and account for the true cost of this process on our sailors. We understand machines, but this pales in comparison to how we take care of our people." The George Washington was not alone. The USS Theodore Roosevelt had 3 suicides during an 18-month maintenance period. At Norfolk Naval Shipyard, 4 sailors took their lives in late 2022 and early 2023. There is a cruel irony in carrier life. Some of the worst conditions happen not during dangerous deployments, but during maintenance periods back home. When ships deploy, sailors have a clear mission. They are defending America, projecting power, working as a team. During maintenance, that sense of purpose disappears. Sailors spend years dealing with contractors, noise dust, and a ship torn apart and barely functional. The George Washington spent nearly 6 years in this state, longer than most enlistment contracts during deployment. Carriers are floating cities with purpose. The USS Carl Vinson runs 24/7 flight operations. Sailors see FA-18 Super Hornets launching and landing, knowing their work directly supports America's military objectives. The USS Gerald R. Ford recently completed its first combat deployment, spending 8 months in the Mediterranean. Despite long hours and stress, sailors reported higher morale during deployment than in shipyard periods. They had a mission-clear leadership and the satisfaction of serving their country. But deployment brings its own challenges. The Dwight D. Eisenhower spent 9 months in the Red Sea, 2 months longer than the standard 7-month deployment. Extended deployment strain, families exhaust crews, and increase maintenance needs when ships return home. The Navy has started recognizing these problems. New sleep regulations require ships to give sailors at least 7.5 hours of rest, with 6 hours uninterrupted. Ships like the USS Gravely have protected sleep hours from dinner until 9 a.m., with strict limits on meetings and announcements. Captain Kevin White, who led internet improvements on the Abraham Lincoln, saw how better communication improves sailor welfare. When sailors can video call their families, see their newborn children, and stay connected, it makes all the difference, he said. Behind every statistic is a human story. Take electrician's mate, Petty Officer Michael Sparta, who served on the USS George H.W. Bush. From Pulaski, Virginia, Sparta spent 5 years away from family and friends in conditions most Americans cannot imagine. Longing to go back home would be an understatement, Sparta said in May 2025. "I do miss Pulaski quite a bit, and I miss my friends and family most of all." Before the Navy, Sparta was an Eagle Scout who built community projects. Now he maintains electrical systems on a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. These sailors are not complainers. They are patriots who chose one of the most demanding careers. They work with dangerous equipment, handle nuclear materials, and operate where a single mistake could cost lives. The newer Ford-class carriers show the Navy is trying to reduce the human burden. The USS Gerald R. Ford needs only 2,600 sailors compared to 3,300 on older ships. Automation and improved design mean fewer people do the same work. But technology only solves so much. The fundamental challenge remains how to maintain the world's most sophisticated military equipment while keeping the people healthy and motivated. The Navy's 2025 budget includes $122 million for mental health resources, up from $70 million the previous year. They are hiring more counselors, improving living conditions at shipyards, and creating better support systems. Programs like the Sailor Assistance and Intercept for Life help sailors who have had suicidal thoughts. In 2022, 2,400 sailors joined this program. The Navy also gave over 413,000 gun locks to sailors and families for suicide prevention. The tragedies of recent years forced the Navy to confront uncomfortable truths after the George Washington investigation. Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro and former Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Michael Gilday made sweeping changes. Newport News Shipyard now provides better housing, improved parking, healthier food, and recreational facilities. No sailor must live on a ship undergoing major overhaul, a direct response to the crisis. The Navy introduced a mental health playbook in February 2023, giving commanders tools to recognize and address mental health issues before they become crises. This is about creating a culture where seeking help is strength, not weakness. Sleep regulations now protect sailors from the worst effects of shift work. The old 5 and dime schedule is being phased out for systems that work with natural sleep cycles. Ships like the USS gravely report better performance and higher morale since these changes. High-speed internet is revolutionizing life at sea. The Abraham Lincoln's test of commercial satellite internet proves sailors can stay connected with families during long deployments. Other ships are rapidly adopting similar systems. The new Ford-class carriers represent a fundamental shift in thinking. By designing ships that need fewer people, the Navy acknowledges human resources are as important as mechanical ones. These ships cost more up front, but should provide better living and working conditions for decades. These are not just military issues. They are American issues, aircraft carriers, Project American Power around the world. They respond to natural disasters, protect shipping lanes, and serve as floating symbols of American strength. The sailors operating these machines are volunteers. No one forced them to join. They chose to serve, often leaving comfortable lives and promising careers. In return, America owes them safe working conditions, adequate rest, and support when they struggle. The challenges facing carrier sailors reflect broader issues in American society: mental health, work-life balance, and the human cost of high-stress careers affect millions, not just those in uniform. When we invest in better conditions for sailors, we invest in national security. A well-rested, mentally healthy crew operates more safely and effectively than one pushed to the breaking point. The 2017 ship collisions that killed 17 sailors happened partly because crews were exhausted and overworked. Recent improvements show what is possible when leadership takes these issues seriously. Better internet, improved sleep schedules, and enhanced mental health support make real differences in sailors' lives. The truth about aircraft carrier life is not that our sailors are weak or complaining. It is that we have asked incredible things of incredible people, while sometimes forgetting they are human beings with human needs. These men and women defend our freedom every day, often at tremendous personal cost. They deserve our respect, our support, and our commitment to providing them the best possible conditions. The Navy is making progress, but there is still work to do. As Americans, we can support these efforts by staying informed, supporting veteran organizations, and remembering that behind every ship and weapon are real people making real sacrifices for our country.